Hello, good evening, and welcome to Warren Thornton on Patreon and also warrenthornton.com. Good evening and welcome to warrenthornton.com or Warren Thornton on Patreon. If you are one of these people who, shall we say, likes to be part of something that is truthful and proper, then great to have you here. We're going to play a little something for you while we're waiting, obviously, for Lembit. Lembit Opik is going to turn up and join us. While we're waiting for him to turn up, have a little look at this.
Have you ever noticed that the smarter you become, the lonelier you feel? It's a peculiar thing, isn't it? You'd think that intelligence would connect you to people, that seeing more, understanding more, would bring you closer to others. But it doesn't. Instead, it separates you. You walk into a room and everyone is laughing at something you don't find funny, talking about things that seem trivial, surface level, safe, and you smile, you nod, you play along, but inside you're somewhere else entirely. You're thinking about the conversation beneath the conversation, the patterns no one mentions, the questions no one's asking, and suddenly you realize you're alone, not physically, but in every way that matters. This is the hidden cost of intelligence. The price nobody tells you about, the isolation that comes, not from being different, but from seeing differently. Let me tell you something about intelligent people, something that might explain why you feel the way you do. Intelligence isn't just about knowing more, it's about perceiving more, connecting dots that others don't see, following thoughts to their logical conclusions, even when those conclusions are uncomfortable. And here's the problem. Most people don't want to go there. They don't want to question the game. They want to play it. They don't want to examine the mask. They want to wear it. They don't want to wonder if the emperor has clothes. They want to complement the fabric. But you can't help it. You see the threads hanging loose. You notice the inconsistencies, the contradictions, the unspoken agreements everyone pretends are absolute truths. And when you point them out, even gently, even playfully, people get uncomfortable. Not because you're wrong, but because you're right. And being right about things people don't want to examine makes you dangerous. So they distance themselves. Not consciously, perhaps, not maliciously, but they do. They stop inviting you to things. They keep conversations shallow around you. They call you intense or overthinking or too serious. And you learn to keep your thoughts to yourself. You learn to dumb it down, to speak in half-truths, to laugh at jokes you don't find funny, to nod along with opinions you don't share. You learn to hide, because full honesty, you've discovered, is social suicide. Authentic expression is loneliness in motion.
There we are. And if you are one of those, welcome home, because we have a lot of those here, people who like to think for themselves, fairly intelligent, and of course, question everything. That doesn't mean we go in for conspiracy theories, just means we examine the facts fully 100%. And all the people on here, come and join us, no problem at all. Lembit Opik is now about to join us. So we're just going to pop Lembit onto the show. 2 seconds. Let's just see where he is. We've lost him for a second there. There he is. Let's promote him to panelist and we will get on with the show. So just remember, everybody, that you do have a home here. Okay. We do love you being here. And of course, it's fantastic. And it is live and interactive. So that means you get your say as well. And we wanted to wait for Lembit to get here because we wanted him to be able to see everything that was going on as well. Good evening, Lembit. How are you? Are you well?
Yeah, I seem to be far right.
I hope that's not. I hope that's by mistake and not politically.
Yeah, there we go. I'm not sure. I'm right so far.
You will get into terrible trouble.
Yeah, maybe. Good to see you anyway. Thanks for letting me be here. So yeah.
Good to have you here. So let's very simply get into something that is already troubling absolutely everybody out there. And we're going to get into this because this is really, really important and more important than most people realize. We have, of course, the nonsense of being aimed at, or at least aiming at, lots and lots, shall we say, to do with Diego Garcia. We have had Israel aiming. Now, let's examine the claim. Israel are saying that, of course, Iran launched 2 missiles at Diego Garcia. Let's get into it very quickly. The claim against the facts. Now, the US sources claim that 2 missiles were launched at Diego Garcia and that it was a failure, one crashing pretty close after launch and the other being shot down by the US Navy. And to all intents and purposes, Iran news media, MER, we were told, had also claimed this. Case closed, right? Well, not really. Iranian missiles are limited to 2,000 kilometers by the Ayatollah, and they've not changed that. And we're incapable of reaching Diego Garcia, which is 3,750 kilometers away. However, Iran could be lying, as we all know. All sides use propaganda in a war. So let's deal with the MER News in Iran, who supposedly published that Iran indeed had shot 2 missiles at Diego Garcia. So absolutely no problem if they're saying that's okay. All good, yes? Well, not really. Israel have a habit of hacking into TV stations and also hacking into newspapers. And now, if we have any sense, we pay no mind to the mainstream media in Western countries. Have we seen so many lies? One can only attribute their reporting to propaganda. Now, MER News seemed rather slow on the uptake, given that they are state-owned and did not publish the story until a full 10 hours after the Wall Street Journal, the original source of the story. That not seem strange to you? Well, now we know that the CIA favourite for planting stories, or we have known for quite a while, is the Wall Street Journal. And the US State Department's favourite is Axios. Both papers have an appalling record for truth and accuracy, and this story was given to them by US sources. Now, that's now been disclaimed, and it's now being said Israeli source. Now, many news outlets regurgitate other stories from other news outlets. That's the nature of the beast, and it is common practice. Nothing wrong in that if it's accurate. Is it possible that MER News regurgitated the story as propaganda to let fear be instilled? After all, as they launched at 8:33 a.m. the previous morning, we've taken plenty of time to know, as the state of Iran, that a strike on Diego Garcia, if it took place, had been successful or not. Would they not be crowing about it? If it was a failure, would they be bragging about it? Well, let's park that for a minute and move on. All experts, including those building these missiles, agree that Iran had a limited missile range to 2,000 kilometers. And people here now know that Diego Garcia is 3,700 kilometers away, and Akrotiri is just over 1,000 kilometers away. So a number of questions now pop up. Did Iran lie? And could a smaller payload help lengthen the range of those missiles? Could Russia or China have given them missiles that reach that range? Yes, Iran could have lied and have missiles that have a much longer range, but so far, no missile ever has been launched by Iran anywhere near the distance required. So was this a new missile or hypersonic? It was certainly not hypersonic. Absolutely none so far have been knocked out of the air in the 5 years of war in Ukraine. And even the Americans, the Ukrainians, and NATO officials have testified to that fact. Now, Russia and China could have given Iran such missiles, but have officially denied it. And And have they done so, no evidence whatsoever has ever been uncovered to dispute that fact. Yes, satellite radar jamming, internet help, as well as air defense systems such as the S-300 and S-400 have been supplied to Iran. So on the face of it, Iran do not have a missile capable of hitting Diego Garcia. Another question is, why would they launch at Diego Garcia when Akrotiri Air Base in Cyprus is 3 times less a distance away and easily reachable? Why would they lessen the payload to fly the missiles further? A premise only recently put forward by Israel. Timing raises its head again. Why would you do that if the point is to cause damage? Now we come to the most damning evidence, or lack of it, of all, the heat maps. Now, every single time one of these missiles launches, there is a heat source. Now, again, anyone who follows this channel knows there are some fantastic missile launch mapping sites out there, such as AMK Mapping. Even so, we never rely on them, not when we have the sources we do. Now, if you remember back, the marketplace bombing that Russia were blamed for, that turned out to be a Ukrainian missile in Ukraine, and the 3 sources that we have are employed by their military in independent countries from the wars that are going on. And 2 of them have corroborated the following, and the other has yet to get back to me because he's on holiday. Now, 2 missile launches deemed to be ballistic, as consistent with Iran's heat maps from ballistic missiles, show them as most likely MRBMs. That's right. Depending on the distance to be traveled, they are capable of determining the type of missile due to the differences in the heat signature that is given off on launch. Now, MRBMs, or medium-range ballistic missiles, have a known range, and it's not anywhere near 3,700 kilometers. The direction is also a problem. If Diego Garcia was the target, you would certainly not want your missiles to trace a zigzag path if you're worried about range limit. So let's examine that exactly. So from our source, the only heat maps for ballistic launch on Friday, and almost every source agrees, the timing of the launch from Iran was 2 launches 7 minutes apart, 08:33 hours, 08:40 hours, from a place called Nia in the province of a place called Yazd. And we're now going to show you a picture of exactly where Yazd is. So there we go. That's a picture of Yazd. As you can see, circled in the top right-hand corner there. That is where the 2 missiles, the morning missiles that were launched, and everybody agrees on the timing of this, this is where they were launched from. So let's continue. Sorry, I'll let you in a second, Lembit. One of the missiles failed and crashed, and its heat signature disappeared a few kilometers outside a place called Bandar Danaya. Let's have a look. We'll have a little look at this. You should be able to see this quite comfortably. Here we go. Bandar Danaya, there we are, which is just across the ocean, which is literally a few kilometers out, and it was literally still in the Straits of Hormuz. So that is the first missile that's been launched. Let's have a look at the second one then. The second launched, or heat map tracked from the same launch site, claimed shot down by the US Navy, disappeared a few kilometers outside of a place called Fujihara, a place hit before and consistent with these practices. Let's have a little look so that you can actually see where this place is. There it is, Fujihara. Of course, that has been hit once before. So literally they've blown up there. So when we look at the heat maps, and it is very, very important to do so, when you look at where they crashed, first of all, we've got a real inconsistency here because they've been launched. One has gone to the left of where it was launched from, and the other one has gone to the right. As you can see, the rings are around what you can see there as the possible. There we go. That's where one crashed. That's where one crashed. That's where the second one was claimed to have been taken down. And of course, they are not even in the general direction of Diego Garcia. So let's crack on, and then we'll let everybody in. So only the heat maps, the direction is, a problem. So the only heat maps for ballistic missile launches on Friday morning, and every source agrees the timing of the launch from Iran was 2 launches, in the morning, 7 minutes apart, 08:33 hours and 08:40 hours from a place called Near. Now, no other ballistic launches from inside Iran are recorded traveling in that general direction. So, is this another Gulf of Tonkin incident, a much altered and propagandized story based on a much smaller event? There is certainly not one iota of evidence whatsoever, and is even more suspect that the drone to Akrotiri nonsense, which has gone very quiet. Now, the timing of these things is always massively important. We always say follow the money and follow the timing to know, and are always great indicators of this. Now, one of the things, and very simply, we'll get Lembit in here. One of the things that is really, really troubling here, and it is troubling for me, and I don't know if it's troubling for Lembit, is first of all, America are looking to try and have some sort of dialogue where they want Iran to have missiles less than 1,000 kilometers. That would be the perfect time, wouldn't it? And of course, if the state-sponsored Mayor TV had turned around and said, yes, they did launch them, it is odd, isn't it? Because that's government-owned, and yet Iran have come out and totally denied any launch whatsoever towards Diego Garcia. Lembit, sorry about keeping you away. There's all the information, and we are 100% sure of our information. So all you people out there who are saying this happened, you just have no clue what you're talking about. Lembit, over to you.
Well, very lucidly described issue and analysis. In short, what you're saying is Iran wasn't aiming at Diego Garcia. That's what you're saying.
No,
and they couldn't be.
They launched 7 missiles, only 2 of them in the general direction on the Friday morning, which everybody has turned around and said, okay, everybody has said we agree. Yes, these missiles have been launched. They don't have the range. The nonsense about lowering, the payload. First of all, why would you do that? You're going to cause damage. And secondly, having spoken to 1 or 2 experts, now we've got 2 confirmations here from guys who do this for a living for their military in their country, saying that there is no way that the missiles were launched towards Diego Garcia. The heat maps, the heat signals from these disappeared.
Okay. I agree. I didn't think that Iran would bother aiming for such a difficult target. And I assumed that this was propaganda to try to drag others, such as the United Kingdom and Europe, into this war.
Yes.
And because we have absolute imbeciles in European politics now, they're dumb enough to believe it, or they're just thick enough to think that we do. I have 2 thoughts on it. Number one, it's interesting that the Ayatollah Khamenei limited the range distance to 2,000 kilometers. Presumably, that was because they didn't really want to give the impression that they could threaten the world.
Correct.
I guess.
Yes,
and then
you are correct.
Yeah. Well, then the second thing here is the second observation is what an odd thing to do to aim for Diego Garcia. How handy that it's in the middle of nowhere, and unless you're assiduous at looking at the information as you are, you couldn't really prove it one way or the other. Yes. How handy, how absolutely jolly convenient that can turn out to be. So okay. I'm with you all the way on this one. It's disappointing. It's pretty despicable if it's true what you've said. And it just shows that when the West is moaning and bitching about all the propaganda coming out of the Iranian operation, this bunch is just lying. And let's remember, they started a war that Trump's own advisor said wasn't necessary because Iran wasn't a threat.
Yeah, exactly that. And here's where we have a problem. There's 2 things there just before we let Louis and Sean in. 2 things there. First of all, it comes almost immediately after Great Britain have publicly announced that they're going to allow America to use bases. In reality, they've been letting them use bases to track and kill people in Yemen from Akrotiri Air Base since 2023, and also certainly had a hand in killing off the Iranian scientists in June when the attacks were taking place. And we also know that planes were up in the air when the school was bombed on the first day. So that dog doesn't hunt either. And of course, Aquateria is 3 times as close. And America have now decided that they want to have a chat with Iran, but they want to, one of the 6 conditions is to limit the missiles to 1,000 kilometers, of course. And of course, that would play very handily. And of course, the whole world now, including lots of commentators and everything else, is following along with the same old rubbish that Israel first put forward there. That of course they can reach London and they can reach Berlin. No, they cannot. Louis Bastos, then Sean Murphy.
Excuse me. Good morning. Good evening. I agree with Lambert. I mean, what's the point of wasting 2 great missiles into Garcia, which is just basically a stopover base for America and England, if they can use those two missiles into Israel? It shows how stupid we are and how gullible we Western people are. Not us, on the show, but most people. Really, it's pathetic. And if the Iranians are striking so well, why would they all of a sudden decide to go so far and miss and missiles sink? It's stupid. The Americans and Israelis don't have anything to take out missiles. So it's a lot of nonsense. And I agree with you guys 100%. It's bullshit.
Thank you, Louis. If they wanted to hit Diego Garcia, sorry, Lambert, on you go.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, well, the answer's simple. It's impossible to find the evidence, even if there is any, because exactly that. Pacific Ocean is 10,000 meters deep in places. So it's nice. It'd be like saying, "Oh, I saw a flying saucer over this totally deserted, uninhabited part of the world." Fact, and I could describe it to you. And this is the problem. But I was watching some man called Reid, a minister for the Labour Party, today on the television. Yeah, absolutely total. It was totally embarrassing. It was just embarrassing to watch his bumbling nonsense. It was. I can't describe it any other way. Complete, utter crud, total crud. What he was saying, and I was sorry to see it. I'm disheartened, actually, to think that our world has come to people like him having a semblance of authority in the West. So that's the why. That's why.
Quite bizarre. And of course, let's be absolutely clear here. If Iran had, and they have, as far as I'm aware, hypersonic weapons, they could have easily reached Diego Garcia. You wouldn't send a medium-range ballistic missile that has a real problem of getting the range when you would send a hypersonic. It's absolutely ridiculous. And the hypersonic, as we know, can't be shot down by anybody in the West. Sean Murphy was next, then Louis Bastos, then Lee Williams.
Well, Warren, it could be that they're trying to discredit Trump because Trump has come out and stated publicly on more than one occasion that they have destroyed all the missiles and drones and missile launchers in Iran, which is actually total rubbish, because we know for a fact that they're still hitting Israel like there's no tomorrow, and Israel actually haven't got any. Are now finding that Israel have got no air defense left whatsoever. So it could be the CIA trying to discredit Trump.
Could be any number of those reasons. I think it's to try and get other people into the war would be my biggest thing.
I think that too.
I agree.
Because they want everybody to go through the Straits of Hormuz with them when they get bombed to pieces. But we're all cowards if we don't. Louis Bastos and then Lee Williams.
Diego Garcia is southeast of Iran. I've sailed through there because I stopped in my round the world race. I stopped in Chagos, which is part of the archipelago, and there's nothing basically there. There's absolutely nothing apart from stopover for military. It belongs actually. It's a base belonging to England, but used by the Americans.
Yeah. Well, let's be absolutely clear as well. When the Americans go back to load up to go bombing again, they're going back to Fairford. They're going to, and the American bombers are going to Ramstein. They're not going to Diego Garcia. Andy, sorry, Lee Williams.
I was just going to say, when you mentioned the weapons that they've not actually used yet, I'm sure they can go a little bit more than 2,000 miles, or
if you've got
kilometers.
hypersonic, they can go a lot.
Yeah.
They can go a lot further. So very
correct.
simple.
That's what I was going to add earlier.
It's scaremongering, trying to get everybody else into the war by look. They can reach. We've got bombs over Berlin. We've got launches over London and all that sort of nonsense. So I hope that is at least laid to rest. We have absolute proof that this is complete nonsense and this never happened. Simple. Lemby, I'll let you have your final thought on this.
What we've been seeing in the last 5 years is the decline and fall of the Western hegemony, fancy word for empire. And we've seen the World Economic Forum begin to fall to pieces with very high profile resignations of the two people who are in charge, one of whom I've met, totally unimpressive man, who is clearly somehow embroiled in the Epstein thing. Klaus Schwab chucked out by his own people for, let's guess, yes, that's right, some sexual impropriety allegation. So they're falling apart there. We've got Western European politicians utterly impotent in the face of the Russian offensive in Ukraine, though. I noticed there was a whole lot of coverage about how well Ukraine is doing at the moment. They captured apparently 400 square kilometers or something. In other words, a 20 by 20 kilometer space.
Yes.
I'm not sure if that's even true. We can talk about that later. And now we have this unprovoked attack on Iran, probably led by Israel and followed by the United States. And what we're now seeing is the relentless and cynical use of propaganda to try to keep all of us on side. And by and large, it works because people don't have conversations like this.
Yeah.
They just assume, even now, that the mainstream media and politicians are telling the truth about these sorts of things. As far as I'm concerned, the concept of Iran launching 2 rockets at what is basically a blue lagoon, where the odds are you'll land in the lagoon rather than on a runway, is totally preposterous. The film wasn't much good, Blue Lagoon, for me, and this claim is equally poor. If you're going to hit out at Britain, you do it in the easiest way possible. The basic strategies of war is you go for the low-hanging fruit. And they could dump this missile into Akrotiri if they wanted to, much more easily. But the reality is Iran has been very clear. They said, we didn't ask for this war, but you're going to have it. We'll see it through to the end, and all we have to do is survive. They don't need to have some really high-risk public relations damaging failure in the Indian Ocean. So who's got the motivation here? It's the West. It's the people who are trying to drag us in, even to this point, even as we speak, there's persuasion going on. But here's the problem they've got. People just don't want it anymore. The overwhelming majority of people polled in Britain are against this initiative in Iran. And lots of politicians, I have to say, people like Nigel Farage are in a bit of trouble now because they backed the wrong horse. And it's interesting because now there are knock-on effects for political parties and politicians who tried to look different, but now look very much the same.
And most of them trying to walk away, apart from, of course, those who always stick with the wrong horse, even when they know it's complete nonsense. There is also now, of course, absolute meltdown over this, Lembic. Now that is a missile launched at Dimona. In fact, we've got a couple of videos to show you. So we're going to show you all of those first, and then you can see and judge for yourself. Here's one which is about.
Well, this is a depressing show today.
Don't worry, we'll cheer you up in a minute. So as we can see, and we've got one more of those, and then we'll get into what's going on here, because of course they're starting to lose the plot quite a bit here. So there we are. So this is a place called Dimona, and of course this was hit by, of course, the people who are not supposed to be able to hit it. Let's have a look.
Hang on, Dimona is in
קדימה, משימה
Israel.
חשובה, ביצוע
It's in
סריקות.
Israel.
קדימה. ביצוע סריקות מהירות בכל הנקודות לדווח.
So there we are, a ballistic missile into a place called Dimona, which of course houses most of Israel's nuclear ambitions, let's put it that way. And of course, the town which harbors the scientists was hit as well. Now, this was Iran, and Iran have come out and stated that this was a warning. They didn't hit the nuclear plant on purpose, and everybody's saying that they did, and they did not. Here we go. We could have struck the Dimona nuclear plant if we wanted to. This was a warning shot. If our nuclear facilities are attacked again, Dimona will be destroyed. And shall we say, educated guesswork has it that that's where Israel keep their nukes, Lembit.
Well, one thing I've learned in the 20 years or so I've worked with Iranians is they reflect the millennia-old cultural maturity of that country. You don't have to like the regime, as it's called, to know that they are one of the oldest civilizations on the planet. And therefore, what I'm observing here is a lot of Iranian politicians saying, look, we didn't really ask for this, but if you want to bring it on, go ahead. We've got asymmetric warfare going on here, guys, and all we have to do is bring down one or two of your very expensive battleships and smash up some of your very expensive planes, and it's going to get too financially painful and too politically painful for you guys to continue. And so this is what I think we're observing here, Warren. And actually, we've got to remember these things don't fade or shouldn't fade with time. We've got to remember that the whole thing was initiated by the West, when Iran was in peace talks with the West. So that's why Iran is saying, why bother? It's a bit like the Russian situation. Putin saying, look, here are my 3 terms. We can have them now, and I'll stop the fighting, or I'll just fight and get them. And and either way, we'll get to the same outcome. It's just a question of how many people die on the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we've had Netanyahu and many others coming out. Netanyahu is playing the victim. There is a bit of hypocrisy going on here. We'll just have to mute this for a second. There is hypocrisy going on here. I mean, when you look at what happened in Gaza, and the Israelis are coming out and going, oh, they're bombing men, women, and children and everything else. It is quite, how can I put it, quite crazy. So there we go. So hopefully, with a bit of luck, we've got a full look at that. Somebody's saying there's a problem there. Your screen share is obscured beneath yours and Lembit's mugs. Okay. Very, very simply, I think there might be something wrong with yours. Anybody else having a problem seeing what we are sharing on the screen? Let me know in the comments.
Not me, Warren.
Okay, thank you. So it might be you need to log out and log back in again. Very, very simply, what we've got here, of course, is a message to America, and it has been sent to America. Trump has said that they're trying to put out feelers for a peace deal. Iran have consistently said, we are not interested in talking peace at all. And in fact, if you want to do anything like that, then you jolly well need to give us lots of stuff that we need, like reparations and everything else, moving out of bases and everything else. Trump is 1 minute saying, I think it's absolutely brilliant. We should do this and we should do that. And the next minute he's saying, I don't want to talk peace. What's your feelings on this, Lembit?
Donald Trump has become surprisingly inconsistent. By and large, Donald Trump has been, in my view, a fairly intelligent negotiator. But in the course of 24 hours, he said three opposite things. First, he said they were going to wind down the military operation. Then they said that he's not interested. First, he said, then he said he's not interested in a ceasefire. And then he said that he's essentially going to annihilate the electricity grid of the whole of Iran unless the Strait of Hormuz is opened by, in UK time, Tuesday night. Well, I can't have it all ways. Tuesday morning, sorry, I think it is. I can't have it all ways. And that's tricky because he's beginning to look like he's being inconsistent in regard to his own comments across a very short period of time. Now, I'm wondering if that's because he realizes this is going to be catastrophic in the midterm elections, or because he's being told otherwise, or because he genuinely thinks he can strong-arm others to do what he wants them to do. Perhaps because in the past he's done that and it's been successful. Whatever the reason, this is tricky because just like Vladimir Putin, the Iranians are totally consistent. And they calmly say, we're not interested in peace. We're going to settle this one way or the other now. There are 90 million of us. Come and have a go if you think you're hard enough.
I think it's absolutely the right thing to do, isn't it? It does seem
if you're Iranian, yeah. Because what's the point? What are they going to do? Wait for another 12-day war, another 6-month war, more bombing by Israel?
They're just going to come back again.
If you speak to Iranians, they say that honor matters more than life itself. Yes. And the other thing is, and I've put this out on an X, I basically said, I'll read it to you actually. I basically said today that the problem is there's just no understanding. It's no victory at all to bomb 90 million people you said you were going to send help to. It's contradictory, but the one that I've got the most hits on this, I got over 100,000 views on this. Starmer says it's self-defense to bomb Iranian territory. What if Iran called it self-defense to bomb British territory? These dangerous precedents are the result of terrible judgment by Keir Starmer, but by extension, terrible judgment by Keir Starmer and all the little amateurs he hangs around with. My worry, therefore, is we're dealing with amateurs in a professionally very challenging situation in a war which was initiated by the West and responded to quite predictably by Iran, who were waiting for it. They've had decades to plan for this. And they're basically saying, we're just going to have to stick it out because all we have to do to win is to stick it out. Muhammad Ali against George Foreman. All he did was stick it out until Foreman was so weakened that with one punch he knocked him out.
Yeah, absolutely. Lee Williams.
I was just going to say that he was famously done it in Ukraine, but he said it in for Iran as well, that they'd won the war. That was around about a week after going into there. Yeah.
Yeah, never takes long, does it, to produce? Let's ask you about this then, because of course the Israeli press and shall we say the press worldwide are splashing it all over the pages. Of course, Benjamin Netanyahu is now out walking the parapet, saying the Iranians are being beastly to me, because we've done this, and trying to blame them, saying they're using all sorts of, shall we say, cluster munitions and everything else. But then again, Israel have been using them since 2012. Are we at a place now where I think we are, where the Israeli victim card is no longer valid. Playing the victim card is no longer valid, Lembit, is it? Do you have another form of argument?
You might have thought that in the Gaza situation, but there's still a fairly large degree of sympathy for Israel. I'd say this every time, but I'll say it again. This isn't about Judaism or Jews. It's about very questionable, dreadful policy making by politicians who I got to assume they're atheists. How can you have any serious faith-based ideology and then carry on the way that they are? The problem here is slightly different, I think. Most people don't understand all this Israel-Gaza stuff. They don't understand it. They just don't like poor people being persecuted because most of the human race is quite decent. The issue that they've got here is no one really understands why we're having a war with Iran. No. Very few people know Iranians intimately. I have been lucky to get to know some great Iranians. And so I have a very high respect for Iranians. But actually, when I was MP, I got to know Iranians for a different reason. So all they see is what they see on the TV, but they don't like it. They don't like what's going on because Iran's comments are quite calm. We are going to wage economic war because that's all we got. And we can use a small number of weapons to do huge damage in Israel. 180 people, 200 people injured. Apparently no one killed. That's interesting. That's a lot of people. Thousands of people will now be affected because that group of 200, if they all know 50 people each, that's 10,000 people now know a victim or more. And so I think the problem here is that the public are going, well, I don't get why you're doing it in the first place, Mr. Netanyahu. Iran wasn't going to invade you. And I don't get what you're doing, Mr. Trump, because you promised us no more foreign wars. And it's really as simple as that, Warren. People don't understand what the hell they're doing. And that's not a good basis for getting public support for a war.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the place that was hit was Arad as well. Have a look at this. So here we go. And this was home to the nuclear scientists. This is the reason that they've actually struck it. And of course, there are many, many people who are in terrible trouble. Here's an aerial view of just how bad it is. There's over 200 injured. And as far as we can ascertain, Lembit, there are at least 4 scientists that have died. That is slowly but surely eking out of that area that they've died. People have gone on social media posts and over around 200 injured. Israel have not admitted, they've admitted to the injuries, but they've not admitted to the actual deaths. And of course, people are saying that Israel is saying that a 5-year-old child was injured. The day, basically after the first day where they killed 160 children in a school, which seems very, very, how can I put it? Pot kettle black, Lembit, I think is the biggest way of saying it.
Imagine if Russia dropped a bomb on a primary school and killed 165 children. That would become Black Wednesday or whatever, and it would be splattered all over the media for weeks. Let's never forget the barbarism of the Russians to kill these innocent children. When it's the other way around, oh, well, we're looking into it. It's a tomahawk. We've got the picture. Well, but they shouldn't have put a school so close to a target.
Exactly that. Sean, and we'll talk about that targeting in a second, actually, because it's interesting. Sean Murphy.
Well, Warren, with that strike in Arad, they're saying 200 injured. I would think there are substantially. I would think there are substantially more than 5 people killed.
Yeah,
a lot more.
There probably is, but all we're getting at the moment from our sources is that there may be lots more people dead. What we're hearing is there are 4 scientists dead. Now I know I've done an awful thing there, haven't I? And I do apologise. It's one of those in order of importance. Whenever you remember the news used to read it out and say in order of not in the order of importance, but they'd say 132 people dead, including 12 Britons, as though we were more important than anybody else who'd actually died in the bombing. So I do apologise for that. But from what we know, there are at least 4 scientists dead. There is obviously going to be many more casualties, civilian-wise, or maybe even family members. But this comes after, shall we say, the bombing of the Natanz nuclear facility. So I do want to get into this with you, Lembit. Let's let Sean Murphy come. Oh no, Sean Murphy's just popped off. Yeah, I do want to get into this with you because this does seem like a complete lunacy of bad ideas. I mean, it's amazing. That does seem an escalation from a very silly one. You know, you've done this with your scientists. Now they've hit your nuclear facilities as well. You did it with the oil. You did it with the gas. Then they hit the gas reserves of other places where you have bases. You obviously did it with the boats as well. And of course, they've been hitting tankers as well. I mean, every time Iran reply in kind, Trump and the West seems to lose its mind.
Well, because they didn't expect this. I could have told you this was going to happen. We did. We talked about it. We talked about it before this all happened.
Yes.
We said this is going to be a nightmare because we were on the show talking about these problems and the inferences of what would happen. So amateur us, just little us, were able to say, well, they're going to reap a whirlwind now because Iran isn't going to give up. They got their missiles in the mountains and they're patient. And this is the problem. Only some weapons need to get through. And obviously they're quite accurate because they hit the nuclear place in wherever you said in Israel.
Just down the road,
Yeah. And so really the problem they have here, the West has, they've started a war they can't stop. And all this fear about weapons coming into London and so on, the simplest thing to do is a terrorist attack. And frankly, every country's got sleepers in every other country. You really wanted to do some big damage in Britain, you could do it very easy. For example, this is a really silly thing, but you know, milk is a substance which has to be cleared up. If you stole half a dozen milk lorries and emptied the contents on half a dozen motorways on a Monday morning, you could paralyze London. Yeah, you can do that without killing anybody. There's so many different things that could be done. And so I think what we're seeing here is the consequence of a poorly thought out military strategy. And why? Because it's not America's war. They've been dragged into it.
Yeah, I think you're right. Let's have a little look at this.
Well, overall, you know, we don't use the strait. The United States, we don't need it. Europe needs it. Korea, Japan, China, a lot of other people. So they'll have to get involved a little bit on that one.
Pretty much desperate for everybody to get involved. But here's the thing. We don't use it. We don't need it. It's got nothing to do with us. You will open the Straits of Hormuz if it doesn't fully open without threat. The Straits of Hormuz within 48 hours from the exact point in time, the United States of America will hit and obliterate their various power plants, starting with the biggest one first. This sort of unhinged ranting isn't helping anything, is it?
Well, it's actually worse than that because he has to do something now.
Yeah.
He either has to start wrecking the electricity grid for 90 million people, 88 million of whom have nothing to do with the Iranian military, and who Trump called on to rise up against their political masters. less likely to do that if they have a national blackout. And so he's either got to do that, or he's got to, or he has his bluff called. Either way, it's terrible, because how do you make friends and influence people by harming the 88 million people who've got nothing to do with the military, whatever? So it's very hard to see how he can get out of this now. The only way he can do it is by saying, well, I've made my point, and I'm glad that the Iranians have now surrendered in some way, so I'll stop the war, or something weird like that. Now, I don't really know how he gets out of this one, because he made a very explicit threat with a very specific time. I can't remember. It's 08:40 US time, was it, that he put that out yesterday morning? Or was it this morning? I can't remember. So he's got this 48-hour window, and he has to do something at the end of it, even if it's say we won. But it's difficult. Why did he say it?
So let's get into this then, because this isn't conducive. Everybody's been turning around saying no because they're not stupid. Trump calls NATO allies cowards for not helping with the Straits of Hormuz into opening these. And of course, other people have a completely different thought on this. There we are. They literally got the begging bowl out. Trump and Netanyahu saying, "Please help us open the Straits of Hormuz." Depending on which side of this, is this going to change anybody's mind? And where do you think the missiles or anything, the so-called attack on Diego Garcia was meant to galvanize Great Britain or France or Germany, who are there and helping anyway? They just don't want to sail into the Straits of Hormuz and be cannon fodder.
No, it's not really going to convince anybody, because you've got this double problem. You've got a bunch of useless European politicians who gawp impotently at the problems in Ukraine, having not made one iota of difference to the long-term outcome there. And now they've got all this noise over in Iran. They don't even understand Ukraine. How are they going to understand Iran? I bet you, if you ask people to draw a map of the Middle East, most of these politicians couldn't do it. There's Truss, who I kind of like as a person. She thought the Black Sea and the Baltic Sea were connected. So, and she was prime minister for a while, for a very brief time. So what we've got here is a complete screw up. I can't use the second word of this, cluster something of disaster caused by the idiotic low quality of European politicians. Not going to happen. And also, they're already so badly burned by the fact that their wayward corruption, their wayward little friend in Ukraine, surrounded by corruption, has taken them for a ride. I was with somebody a few days ago who knows the arms industry, and he said that the illegal arms traders are absolutely enraged by the fact that Ukraine has knocked the bottom out of the market for illegal weapons. They're really angry. It's because the whole market's collapsed because of Ukraine. So no, there is no prospect here of any kind of a recovery, as far as I can see, for the simple reason that there's no one to recover. There is no one to do the recovering.
No, exactly that. We got a couple of more videos to show you. This one is basically how Iran are feeling.
I just want to thank President Donald Trump for liberating the people of Iran. Thank you. So kind of you. So generous of you. I mean, really, how selfless you are to spend 200+ billion on Israel and the Jewish supremacists. Thank you so much for liberating Iran. My goodness, look what you've done to the place. It's so much better already. How wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, President.
So that's basically a very tongue-in-cheek look at how the Iranians...
Who is he?
He's just... I don't know. I don't actually know, but I caught the video and I thought that about sums it up. And I thought it'd be a really good idea to bring it and play. I think he's a TikTok blogger, I think. But it did pretty much sum up how they're feeling. Let's have a look at this.
Morning, good to have you back. I want to start with the latest of what we're hearing from President Trump. Let me read you what he posted overnight. He says if Iran doesn't fully open without threat the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours from this exact point in time, the United States of America will hit and obliterate their various power plants, starting with the biggest one first. Has the president changed his mind about winding down the war, as he said a day earlier, and instead plans to escalate?
I think he said he could wind the war down at any time he wants. And, Kristen, this is the only language the Iranians understand.
But this seems to be an escalation, a threat of escalation, and it seems to run counter to his statement that he, in fact, wants to wind down the war.
Again, Kristen, the president's been very clear from the beginning that the goals are destroy the Iranian Air Force and the Navy, to completely demolish their missile capabilities, demolish their ability to replenish those capabilities, make sure the Iranians cannot have a nuclear weapon, and stop their ability to project power internationally. And the president will take whatever steps it takes to achieve those goals.
Well, you know, I was on the phone with President Trump a week ago. He told me allies were on the way to help secure.
Scott Bessent's a bit of a sociopath, isn't he?
He's just doing his job. Sometimes I was in a court case recently, observing, and the plaintiff had a brilliant barrister. He was engaged, he was on the job, he was pedantic in a way, but very intense, and it was interesting. The defense barrister had given up. She just rambled on, and you could see that she didn't even believe it herself. That's what I think I've just seen there. Somebody who doesn't actually have any commitment whatever, really, to what he was saying. I mean, you feel like he was going to say, the president's got a very good idea what to do. You know, you just expect him to start laughing because it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
This could define Donald Trump's legacy.
It could. And something else we need to talk about a little bit. CENTCOM have come out and denied that any F-15 fighter jet was taken down, of course, over central Iran. Complete nonsense. It's completely fake, completely false. And then an hour later, the Iranians released it.
اینجا خورد.
There we go. And they hit it. CENTCOM
interpret that. I need you to interpret
F-15, F-15 that CENTCOM said that absolutely didn't get knocked out of the air. It's complete nonsense. The Iranians are lying. And then an hour later, they released a video of that very F-15 being knocked out of the air. And of course, they're saying that the F-15 just had a bit of a problem. Certainly did. It got hit by an Iranian missile, by an Iranian air defense missile. Nobody can believe CENTCOM when they start coming out with this nonsense.
Yeah, the problem here is that we already know they're willing to tell porky pies lies about this, because it beggars belief to think that two KC-135 tankers bumped into each other.
Yes.
It just can't be true. I just don't believe it can be true, that because you actually have to be 50 meters out. Sorry, you have to probably misjudge by about 100 meters, because the tail of one aircraft has to be right underneath the other plane, and they're so close that they're basically snuggled up like peas in a pod. It can't happen. And also, we know that 5 other tanker aircraft, or KC-135s, been damaged. So this continuous denial, always something else causing these things. It just doesn't seem credible to me.
And of course, the F-35, which is their their, you know, sort of, if you like, flagship in terms of aeroplanes, much better than the F-15. That got knocked out of the air, and CENTCOM again turned around and said, well, no, it hasn't happened. And it turned out it did. Bizarre. Sean Murphy.
Well, Warren, I look at it this way. The F-35 is their super duper stealth fighter, almost invincible, not vulnerable, and that's how they'll push it to every nation they're trying to sell it to.
Yeah.
They do not want that to come out, that they are vulnerable and they can be knocked out the sky. It's as simple as that. That's why they lie about it.
It is a very strange thing.
It's going to affect the sales.
Yeah, it is a very strange thing when they come out with this sort of nonsense. And of course, it's now been proven that Britain did a Patriot missile was the one that blew up the oil refinery. And of course, it turned out it was a Patriot air defense missile and nothing to do with the Iranians, who of course turned around and said that they didn't bomb the oil facility of one of the Gulf state countries. And of course, it turns out that they didn't, because the investigation shows that indeed it was a Patriot missile that did it. While we're talking about calamities and stuff like that, let's have a little listen to Hexes. Finally coming a little bit clean, Lembit.
And I think, you know, we're also still dealing with the environment that Joe Biden created, which was depleting those stockholds and not sending them to our own military, but to Ukraine, which is every time we reach back and look at any sort of a challenge we have, it goes back to, well, send it to Ukraine. Ultimately, we think this should be these munitions are better spent in our own interests at this point, and this kind of funding bill is going to ensure that we're properly funded going forward.
So there we are. First of all, pretty much admitting, and Hexes having a bad week because his poster boy that he used to show everybody how brilliant the American military was, the poster boy Marine was actually caught stealing. Let's have a look. Yes, sir, I want to fight for my country, but you don't mind if I rifle through your locker.
Hang on, so who was that? And what I don't understand. What were we looking at there?
The poster boy Marine who Hexeth had standing beside him as a pillar of, American manliness and brilliant American Marines. It turned out he was rifling through one of the other person's lockers to see what he could steal. Pistol Pete's not having a good week. They're running out of ammo as well, Lembit, like we said.
Yes, well, that was predictable because you need a $7,000, you need a $3 million Patriot to knock down a $7,000 drone, and you just draw it out. You just draw it out and keep doing it until eventually you run out of weapons. And I still think there's going to be a massive attack once that's more or less happened. I think there's still going to be a massive attack by Iran if they feel they need to do it. It might be that by that point America's claimed victory, which no one will believe, and Iran will say, okay, we'll scale it down.
So let's as we're talking about the weapons, let's talk about the targeting system then, because there's something slightly troubling that everybody may have missed. They are now, Hexes is putting forward from the Pentagon and of course to Congress that Palantir use the AI targeting system for all America's targeting from now on in the war, and they're going to pass a resolution that allows that to happen with Palantir. Now we have to remember that Israel banged in those coordinates and put IRGC in front of the name school on the first day, then handed that to the Brits, who then went up, could quite clearly see that was there. That was then handed over to the Americans who fed it into the AI Palantir, give us a list of possible targets, and it came up with the IRGC school because the Israelis very craftily had stuck IRGC in front of school. And then, of course, they blew that up. So the Palantir AI selecting targets, you're only as good as what's going to be punched in so you could see more of this with schools and hospitals and everything being blown up then.
Yeah, so you're saying that was an AI error?
Yes, but based on the information that was given to the AI by Israel, Britain, and the Americans who were putting the information into it.
Okay. Well, there's very little to say about it. It was a horrendous war crime. Horrendous. I as a parent myself, I just don't know how I could handle such a gratuitous taking of life in a war which wasn't necessary. This is the horrendous thing about it. This is what's so upsetting about the thing. The whole war is not necessary. I just go on.
Gives me Terminator vibes a little bit, this Lembit. But AI turns around and says, what we're going to do now? Bomb a school of dolphins? Yeah. I mean, it's just incredible. Or, you put AA in front of something and he thinks it's an aircraft, accessory or whatever.
Just a matter of letters.
Yeah.
An error of letters means that 165 families probably are bereft.
Crazy, isn't it?
I bet you in some cases there'll be more than one child from the same family.
Unbelievable.
Just imagine if that happened due to an error.
It also allows you to devolve responsibility, doesn't it? It wasn't us; it was the AI.
Yeah, exactly. But of course, you can't really hide behind that.
No. Let's Sean Murphy in. Sean.
Well, that was the point I was going to make, Warren. It's like that movie clip that you show. It wasn't us, it was them.
Yes, it was the AI, it was them.
It was Palantir. Us.
Yeah.
It wasn't us, it was Palantir.
It is the problem. Yeah, it is a problem, isn't it? It is a problem. Because then
Palantir doesn't take into consideration whether they're going to be military casualties or civilian casualties. It doesn't take anything. It takes no human part into consideration. It's AI. It's not programmed to take civilians or anybody else, any casualties into consideration. To AI, it's just buildings.
Yeah, exactly that. I think this is the bit you're talking about. This will be Palantir. This will be America, Israel, and UK's response when your children get killed.
No, it wasn't us. It was them.
There we go. And then, of course, is something that we'll see. Now, what do we have then for an off-ramp? Well, pretty difficult to get an off-ramp at the moment. There's no doubt whatsoever that shall we say, the Iranians are not going to be listening. And from all the talk and the boxed in that Trump is, it's pretty much going to be a problem from there. Now, I normally call this CBS. It is called CBS, but here we go. Trump administration making heavy preparations for potential use of ground troops in Iran. And we all know that basically America has had, shall we say, a bit of a hard-on for Karg Island for many, many decades. You may not be aware of this, but they very much have. And there's Karg Island, which is just off the coast there from Bashir, which is just off the Iranian coast. So I'm going to do a little monologue on this to give you an idea of what goes on and why Karg Island is a fool's errand. And then if you weren't aware of this, because many people aren't, now everybody loves the idea of invading Karg Island, but what many do not know is that this is not, or should I say, US or Israel or Israel's alliance first try at occupying it. On September the 2nd, 1980, the Western-backed Iraqi forces began the war with Iran by bombing Iranian airfields. And by the time the guns fell silent in 1988, over 1.5 million people were dead. Now, the Iran-Iraq war was the longest conventional conflict of the 20th century. It is also among the most brutal. Iraq forces employed chemical weapons against Iranian troops and civilians with impunity, killing tens of thousands. Iranian commanders sent waves of teenage volunteers clearing paths with their bodies for regular troops to advance. Both sides targeted civilian population in the War of the Cities. Both attacked oil tankers in the Persian Gulf, drawing foreign navies into the conflict and nearly provoking a superpower confrontation. For the Islamic Republic of Iran, barely 1 year old when the war began, the conflict was nothing less than an existential crisis. It unified a revolutionary regime that had been fracturing along political and ideological lines, and it provided a crucible in which the IRGC was forged into a military and economic powerhouse. It entrenched the narrative of martyrdom and sacrifice that would become central to the Republic's legitimacy, and it left deep wounds, physical, psychological, and political, that continue to shape Iran's society today. Now, the Iraqi president at the time, Saddam Hussein, launched the invasions for reasons that were simultaneously strategic, ideological, and personal. At the strategic level, the Shatt al-Arab waterway, the confluence of the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers, forming Iraq's only outlet to the Persian Gulf, have been a source of tension between the two countries for decades. The 1975 agreement, the Algiers Accord, had settled the border along the Thalweg, deepest point of the waterway, in exchange for Iran's cessation of support for Kurdish rebels in northern Iraq. Saddam signed the agreement under duress when Iran's military, equipped and trained by then by the United States, was regionally dominant, and he never accepted it. Now, the 1979 Iranian Revolution changed the strategic calculus dramatically. The new Islamic Republic purged the Shah's officer corps, cancelled major weapons contracts with the United States, and severed its military ties with Western trainers. Overnight, Iran's armed forces were transformed from the region's most powerful into a factionalized collection of revolutionary committees, and Iraqi intelligence concluded that Iran was right for the taking. So Saddam, harboring territorial ambitions beyond there, laid claim to Khuzestan, Iran's oil-rich southwestern province, which he called Arabistan, in reference to its Arab population, and thinking capturing that would give Iraq control over Iran's primary oil fields and refineries, crippling the Iranian economy and funding Saddam's regional ambitions. The timing seemed perfect. Iran was diplomatically isolated, militarily weakened, and potentially chaotic. Saddam expected, like Trump, a swift victory, perhaps 3 or 4 weeks, his generals had predicted, followed by the collapse of the revolutionary regime and its replacement by a government more amenable to Iraqi interests, or should we say American interests, because they were now funding Saddam Hussein. If Saddam miscalculated the ease of victory, he also underestimated the resilience of Iran's revolutionary fervor. The Islamic Republic, whatever its internal divisions, possessed something Iran lacked: a population mobilized by ideological conviction and a leadership willing to sacrifice that population in staggering numbers. Khomeini framed the war not as a territorial dispute, but an existential struggle between Islam and infidelity, between the oppressed and the oppressors. Saddam was cast as the agent of American imperialism, seeking to crush God's government. To fight and die in this war was not merely a patriotic duty, but religious obligation, a path to martyrdom and paradise. This framing resonated deeply, as it is doing now. The revolution had mobilized millions of Iranians who felt betrayed by the Shah's westernization and inspired by Khomeini's vision. When Iraq invaded, those same millions rallied to the regime's defense. The war, far from toppling Khomeini, consolidated his authority and silenced his domestic critics. The expected collapse did not materialize. Iran's forces, though disorganized, fought tenaciously, and by early 1981, Iran had stabilized the front line and began launching counteroffensives. Now, the turning point came in March 1982, and a month later, they recaptured all their territories. The battle cost thousands of Iranian lives, but it expelled the Iraqi forces from almost all occupied territory. And to give you an idea here, they actually used human waves of people to clear minefields. That's how much the Iranians were willing to die to get rid of the Iraqis off their soil. By 1984, both sides began attacking oil tankers, and the attacks on Gulf shipping drew foreign powers into the conflict. In 1987, Kuwait, which had supported Iraq throughout the war, requested American protection for its tankers, and the Reagan administration agreed, reflagging Kuwaiti vessels with American flags and providing naval escorts. Now, the US Navy's presence in the Gulf led to direct confrontation. In April 1988, after an American frigate struck a mine, US forces destroyed 2 Iranian oil platforms and sank most of Iran's warships. The most catastrophic incidents occurred on July the 3rd, 1988, when the USS Vincennes, a guided missile cruiser, shot down an Iranian air flight 655, killing all 290 passengers and crew. Washington claimed the Vincennes mistook the civilian airline for an attacking F-14 fighter. Unsurprisingly, nobody believed it. So to Kharg Island, first bombed in 1980, it has been the envy of Western powers ever since. Kharg is 500 miles beyond the Strait of Hormuz and just 15 miles off Iran's coastline. Storming the beach would require making it past a maritime choke point, currently considered too dangerous to attempt, with amphibious assault ships heading their way. Iran forces could mine the strait and the waters around Kharg itself, while attacking with shore-based and water-based anti-ship missiles, aerial drones and speedboats. Any landings would also be in range of rockets and artillery that Iranian crews have not yet had the opportunity to employ. A helicopter assault avoids anti-ship weapons, but any aircraft that touches down will be an easy target for drones, missiles and artillery, as well as shorter range defences. The MEU complement of B-22 Ospreys and helicopters would lead at least 3 trips to insert its Marines, giving Iranian troops plenty of time to calibrate their sights. An airborne jump would be the surest path, but still perilous. Planes are safe from drones, and fighter escorts could suppress or soak up surviving Iranian air defences. Paratroopers land, widely dispersed, preventing a single drone from taking out an entire platoon. But laden paratroopers blown off course, a common occurrence, could drown or land amongst an unfriendly population. Iran's leaders are fighting for their survival. The opportunity to inflict a mass casualty event that could sap already very poor support for the war, or to hold a battalion as hostages, may well appear more valuable to Tehran than the oil revenue that Kharg Island gets. The capabilities described to repel any rescue attempt and keep those forces trapped on Kharg Island, which they can just keep shelling. If this analysis overestimates Iranian capabilities or underestimates US air power, blame the example set by the more modestly equipped and organised Houthis who have pushed the US Navy to their limits over the past 2 years. Kharg is a pipe dream, literally, that cost 67,000 lives in the 80s. For Iranians who lived through the war, it was a national trauma, grinding, wasteful, seemingly endless conflict that consumed their youth, their loved ones and their hopes. For the regime, it was a crisis that saved the revolution, unified a fractious population behind a leadership that seemed only months before the invasion on the verge of collapse. Both perspectives are true. Both continue to shape Iran's politics and society. Now, in August 1988, when Khomeini drank his cup of poison and accepted peace, he ended the fighting, but not the war's consequences. Those consequences, institutional, ideological, and psychological, live on. The Iran-Iraq war may be over, but it has never really ended. It just changed the players. Now Israel is doing the pushing, but behind both, since time immemorial, and certainly since 1980, has been the hand of America. Lemby, your thoughts on Kharg Island?
Well, you've put a lot of work into that, and rather than regurgitating what you said, let me say only 2 things. One thing is, as soon as the body bags start going back to America, there are 2 things people will say: why and Vietnam. Those are the 2 things they'll say, because what do Americans even know about Iran, apart from the fact that Iran was very unlikely to attack the American mainland? So that's the first problem. The second problem is, when you're there, how are you going to sustain it? How are you going to keep your supply lines going whenever you're surrounded by hostile forces, which will recover And you're just going to end up, just imagine, you're just going to end up with a bunch of Marines who always say, "Oh, please don't send me to Cog Island," because you'll just have this pointless enclave. I suppose they could say they could guard the Strait of Hormuz there, but that doesn't really work because it's a little bit too far west. And it's not just that. All you need is a jet ski and a guy with an RPG to stop a ship.
Yeah, yeah, exactly that, and that you can see that coming, can't you?
Yeah.
Sort of thing. We're going to. How can I put this? It's going to get worse and worse and worse. We're about to show you something now. This is Baghdad Diplomatic Center. That has been hit very heavily by Iran, and of course they're not finished in any way. Hold on, in Israel. There we go. Do pardon me. That's Holon in Israel that has been hit, and of course they're still hitting many other areas. The Iraqis have hit the U.S. Victoria base yet again.
The Iraqis.
Yep, Iraqis. Of course, the Iraqis have decided that they don't want the Americans there either. So, of course, they're hitting the bases in Baghdad and other areas.
Hang on. This is a really big point. You're saying the Iraqis are now attacking American interests?
Oh, they have been for a week or two. What they've been doing is they've been launching against various U.S. bases, especially the Victoria base, the U.S. Embassy base in Baghdad, and also the one on the border as well, which they've hit quite a lot. So the Iraqi sort of militias and everything else have been getting together and pounding the American embassy and the American base.
That's really remarkable.
Yeah. So I just thought I'd highlight that for you. But yes, it is an ongoing thing in Baghdad where they're actually giving it a good pasting up.
Wow.
And we have a major problem, of course. And here's, should we say, it is a major escalation, I suppose. When Israel are screaming about war crimes and everything else, and you point out to them they've been using phosphorus and everything else for God knows how long, they couldn't give a damn. Okay, this is Iran. This, if you don't want to watch, please leave the room now. This is the last 40 seconds of the person who's taking this video's life. And this is what Israel did on the school. They did a thing called a double tap. So they launch, they wait for people to come and rescue, and then they launch again. So if you don't want to watch this 40-second video, please go and do something else for the next 30 or 40 seconds.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن يا فاطمه زهرا يا فاطمه زهرا کمکم کن کمکم کن يا فاطمه زهرا اللهم صل على محمد.
You need to explain what happened there.
So basically what we're talking about here is a lady who was just, shall we say, trying to go and rescue people who had already been bombed. And she was there trying to, on the phone, trying to get some medical help to the people. And Israel and the US hit it again and again about 30 minutes later. And that poor woman sadly didn't make it. But her mobile phone, she took most of the blast. Her mobile phone didn't, and they were able to release it to show exactly what the Israelis were doing. They're literally waiting, America and Israel bombing these people, waiting for help to turn up, and then hitting them again. And it is quite monstrous. Is that any bad, any worse than cluster munitions or white phosphorus? We have to say that because what they've done there is quite terrible. Somebody put their hand up, Lee Williams.
Yeah, sorry, Warren. It is only me. I was just going to suggest it's exactly what they've done at the school, at the infant school, the private school. And then secondly, how many military got actually killed in that bomb in Iran? How many military?
Yeah, 20. 20. There were 27 casualties. Adult casualties. Only 3 of them were IRGC. All the rest were children. But you're right. There was a double tap. There was one strike, and then there was another strike 37 minutes later. Lemby, when Israel starts screaming about war crimes, they don't have a leg to stand on here, do they?
I don't think they do. But then you knew that from the whole Gaza experience. It seems to me that Israel has made dangerous assumptions about its own authority. And I just don't see how Israel comes out of this without having massively damaged its international reputation, especially when it transpires, as I think it probably will do, that Israel dragged America into this war. Yeah.
It's only going to get worse, isn't it?
I think
there
so,
is.
yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. This is flights on Dubai Airways. Have a look at this, Lemby.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome on board this flight.
Nobody seems to want to take one at the moment.
I wonder why.
It's quite staggering, isn't it? And of course, somebody put their hand up there.
Yeah, sorry. Only a quick one, Warren. Apparently, as well, some of the people from Israel have been escaping to an island called Cyprus as well.
Yeah,
has anybody heard about
very
that?
much.
Okay.
That's been stopped though because they've stopped flights out now. But very much when the first bombing went on, they also had to stop that because they were getting flights that were going straight to Cyprus. And of course, they're buying a lot of land in Cyprus at the moment. Are people from Israel? That should tell you something. We're going to see more and more of that. The Bahrain royal family have done a bit of a runner as well, Lembit. They've taken off. Here we go. There's the Bahrain royal flight. They've landed at Farnborough Airport. They're obviously getting out of the way here, Lembit. Either that or they're going there, I would imagine, for a meeting to discuss their extreme displeasure at what is going on at the moment, because Bahrain are suffering quite seriously.
Yeah, they will be. It's not a surprise. It's understandable that they're suffering seriously. I get it. It's not really Bahrain's fight, nor Qatar's, nor UAE's. Iran's dragged them in extremis because it has to do whatever it can. This isn't about right and wrong. It's just about military expedience. They have to do whatever they can to bog down the Americans politically. And we know very well that the other allies of America are angry about being dragged in. And Iran says terribly sorry about this. You said that a Patriot missile had hit the oil place. That's interesting.
It'll be interesting, Lembit, to get your views on this, because obviously this has been going on, but I haven't seen you since then. This is Joe Kent on the Megyn Kelly Show.
So getting the 18 intelligence agencies to agree on anything, it's very challenging. It is a very laborious and it's sometimes a very intense process of coordination and having people argue their cases. When you have the 18 intelligence agencies saying without a doubt that Iran is not working towards a nuclear weapon, and the Defense Intelligence Agency doing battle damage assessment, which is what the DIA really specializes in, is having these military-based assessments, that's what I'm going to go with. Being influenced by the IAEA or by another government, Israel in this case, saying like, oh no, even though you conducted Midnight Hammer and your 18 intelligence agencies say that their nuclear capability is gone, they're still somehow digging out from the rubble, and they're going to be able to assemble 10 bombs in 2 weeks. Again, sorry, I'm going with with what the director of national intelligence said, and she's saying that based on the research and the analysis and the rigorous debate of 18 intelligence agencies.
There we are. So, Lembit, everything that we were discussing before, and I thought, and I've been saying for ages that all the intelligence agencies are sharing all their intel. They're all in it together.
Yeah, it's interesting how often you hear this now. I don't think that Iran is wedded to a nuclear weapon. They're more likely to be attracted by the idea now than they were 2 weeks ago. The reality is there's a general disagreement with what Donald Trump's done, and it's not hidden. People saying this is really bad. It's not hidden in any way. And so Donald Trump's in some kind of political quicksand now, and not many people are stretching their hand out to pull him out.
Yeah, exactly that. It does seem a bit of a bizarre thing. The next thing we need to talk about is Orban. Got a problem, Lembit, coming up.
Rossz helyen keresgélnek, hogyha azt gondolják, hogy bármilyen zsarolással Magyarországon eredményt lehet elérni. Mi az ukrán fenyegetések szintjéhez vagyunk szokva. Tehát ahhoz képest, hogy fölnégyelnek, megölik a családomat, meg engem, ahhoz képest ezek a belga-német megjegyzések azok inkább civilizált diskurzusnak tűnnek. Tehát rossz helyen keresgélnek, hogyha azt gondolják, hogy bármilyen zsarolással Magyarországon eredményt lehet elérni. A mi pozíciónk morálisan is megállja a helyét, jogilag is korrekt, és politikailag is helyes. Mi mindenkivel kész állunk a vitára, velük is ez tegnap megtörtént, kifogytak az érvekből, nem volt olyan szempontjuk, amire ne kaptak volna kielégítő és számukra is elfogadható választ. Innentől marad ez a típusú savanyú a szőlő fenyegetés.
So, Lembit, we're talking about, how can I put this? Ukraine threatening to kill Orban, or at least get rid of him. This has more connotations than we could possibly imagine, because Ukraine also have a kill list called Mirotovets, or Mirotovets, I may not be pronouncing it right, but the Ukrainians have a kill list. Now, that doesn't seem, that seems like a crazy Ukraine thing until you realize that it is run from a server from NATO out of Brussels. This is the Ukrainian kill list is run from these, and there they are threatening Orban. Nothing to see here, Lembit?
Orban is a real pain because he has taken a very similar view to that of you and me and many of our viewers, to say that the Ukraine war is lost, unjustified support is coming to Ukraine, and there needs to be a negotiated solution. Viktor Orban is under great pressure because of external meddling in the general election, which he has to fight in a few weeks' time. And obviously, his enemies are trying to get rid of him. But Zelensky has once again proved his utter moral bankruptcy by threatening to give his address to enemies and talking about, oh, they can talk in his language or something, essentially threatening to kill him. That's the only way you can really interpret what Zelensky was saying. Well, I've always said he's not a politician. He's a professional clown, and he's dangerous.
Well, let's get into why this is such a problem, because they're going to try and get rid of him. Now, Orban's animosity towards the EU establishment runs deep. For more than a decade, the Hungarian Prime Minister has been the bloc's sole dissident, railing against its open-door migration policies, embracing LGBTQ ideology, and what he called the suicidal plan to welcome Ukraine into the European Union. He secured carve-outs from the EU anti-Russian sanctions and is currently vetoing a 90 billion euro loan package for Kiev. Now, the EU has responded by withholding funds equal to 3.5% of Hungary's GDP over him just banning LGBTQ propaganda and refusing to accept non-European migrants. Brussels has pinned its hopes on Peter Magyar and his teaser party, which promises to overturn Orban's domestic reforms. Now, after the European Council failed to find a workaround to Orban's veto at March 19th meeting, the EU chief diplomat, Kaja Kallas, said that a Plan B was underway based on the strategy playing out in Budapest. Plan B clearly involves a full-scale campaign of censorship and subversion. On March the 16th, Thomas Regner, who is the European Commission spokesperson, announced the EU had activated its rapid response system to combat online disinformation. While most Europeans have never heard of the system, the RRS has been a key tool in the Commission's censorship arsenal for years. It empowered EU-approved fact-checkers to flag online content as disinformation and request its removal and the people writing it from platforms. TikTok and Meta are two examples. Platforms such as Meta and TikTok participate in the system voluntarily. All major social media companies have to sign up to the EU's Code of Practice on Disinformation. However, a trove of documents published by the House Judiciary Committee in Washington earlier this year showed that they threaten, often explicitly, with punishment under the EU Digital Services Act, companies if they refuse to toe the EU line. And that was Apple, Google, LinkedIn, Meta, Microsoft, Pinterest, Snapchat, Wikipedia, X, and YouTube. Literally, Peter Magyar has allies in Meta, almost exclusively targeting anybody who's a right-wing populist. In fact, Hungarian MEP Dora David, a former Meta employee and member of Magyar's teaser party, boasted last year, "We've seen all these companies change their behavior and they will do as we want if they want to be able to practice in our country." As far as we are concerned, this is a done deal and Orban will no longer be president. Lembit.
Yeah, that's how that interpretation is exactly what I think is going on. It seems like it. Yeah. They don't like him hanging around because he's an awkward one. He's an irritant to these people. What's so tragic about it is he's one of the two leaders in Europe that I respect, the other one being Meloni in Italy. So of course they want to get rid of him. He's just you can't have a man like him in that position because he's actually stopping that horrible person there. Not completely sure what that's meant to illustrate, unless that's
Ursula von der Leyen and the European Commission, who are literally having a go at Orban because he's continuing to buy Russian oil, and yet Ursula von der Leyen and her cronies seem quite happy for everybody to run out of fuel this winter, either no petrol to put in the cars or freeze to death. Lembit.
Yeah, and I saw some energy commission telling people not to fly. Obviously, that doesn't apply to Starmer, who flies around pointlessly all the time. It's interesting, really. Oh, yeah, don't you guys fly? We'll do the flying for you. Don't you guys fly?
Yes.
This is terrible.
Sell us your carbon credits. We're ready to buy them. Isn't that crazy? Just before we get on to one or two last things, we do have a video to show you today. Now, many people have asked, what on earth is Zionism? How did it start? Where did it come from? And everything else. Well, one of the best information films I could ever show you is probably one that is on YouTube. So I'm going to show you about 10 or 15 minutes of it. And if you're interested in it, then you can go and have a look for yourself because it is very, very interesting indeed. And this is in 1983. This is Zionism back in 1983, and this is dubbed, but it does have an English language voiceover, so it's all right for you to listen to. But you might find this jolly interesting for people who actually want to know about Zionism, and there's a lot that are asking, what is it? Let's have a listen.
These are traditional propaganda spectacles organized by the World Zionist Organization. No expense is spared. The largest concert hall in New York is rented. The Presidium is filled with leaders of Zionist organizations. All the standards of American political advertising are observed. The audience is not only entertained, but also persuaded. Persuaded of the unsurpassed merits of a genuine national idea. It is promoted by the chairman of the executive committee of the World Zionist Organization himself, Leon Summers.
Zionism was and remains a revolution without qualification, because Zionism put an end to the state of Jewish homelessness and made the Jewish people masters of their own fate on their own land. Because Jews are pioneers who developed a wild country. Because Zionism strives to create a new society based on the ancient ethical teaching of the prophets, on equality and social justice, and on the later prophets of Western liberalism and democracy.
Liberal democratic Europe on the eve of the 20th century, at the beginning of the era of monopolistic imperialism, saw the bourgeoisie searching for new means to fight the revolutionary movement of the working class. It was precisely at this time that Zionism appeared on the political stage, an ideology, a policy, and a practice of the large Jewish bourgeoisie. The year 1897, representatives of the Jewish bourgeoisie from different countries of the world gathered for the first Congress of the World Zionist Organization. The founding father of Zionism was Theodor Herzl.
We must isolate Jewish students and workers from socialism in order to give them instead a genuine national idea.
Herzl set out his program in the pamphlet, The Jewish State, and even earlier, in a letter to Rothschild,
about how my second cousin began doing this. Around 1880, he gave significant sums. That is true. He helped Jews in general emigrate from Western Europe and settle on the land in Palestine. But that ended. All of that ended with the death of my second cousin in 1934.
Do you become disillusioned with Zionism, or do you not have enough money?
Are two different things. All Jews criticize other Jews for not having given enough to Israel, not having given enough to the Jewish cause, to the Jewish religion, to Jewish social institutions. And this is fair, because there has never been a Jew good enough, and his conscience has never been sufficiently clear. Fortunately, such criticism helps one become more virtuous and makes it possible to receive even if anew.
I was born and lived in Jerusalem, where Arabs lived, Muslims and Christians, and Jews. I was raised in a school where Arabs, Muslim Arabs, Christian Arabs, and Jews studied together with me. We all lived in peace with each other. Arabs were stronger than anyone, and so was my family.
Testifies Ruhil El-Hatti. The mayor of East Jerusalem was expelled by Zionist occupiers after the aggression of 1967. He died in Hollywood.
In the Middle Ages, Jews were oppressed and persecuted in Europe. The only refuge ready to accept them were Islamic states, including Palestine and others. They lived under Arab-Muslim rule for 13 centuries in peace. Differences and conflicts arose only with the appearance of international Zionism.
British imperialists were the first to decide to use Zionism to strengthen their positions in this strategically important region of the world.
Dear Lord, His Majesty's government views with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people, and will render full assistance in achieving this goal. I would be grateful if you would bring this declaration to the attention of the Zionist organization in London.
Film Chronicle, year 1919. A Zionist commission arrived in Palestine, headed by the leader of the World Zionist Organization, Chaim Weizmann. The commission discussed with the British occupation authorities the issue of accelerating Jewish colonization, since Jews then made up only 7% of the population of Palestine. The principles of Zionist colonization were Jewish land. Land must belong only to Jews. Jewish labor. Jewish production. The goal of colonization, set already by Herzl, was to turn all of Palestine into a Jewish state.
Within Zionist ideology, that there have always been two primary tendencies. One was Theodor Herzl, who was an ignorant Jew, someone who knew nothing of the history of the Jewish people and whose sole focus was on his own self-advancement. And then there was the well-known Jewish writer Ahad Ha'am. He stated that the state itself was of no consequence to the Jewish people. What was crucial was the presence of a spiritual and moral core, because following the emancipation of the Jews, the ghettos vanished and a real danger emerged that the Jewish people would assimilate.
Ghettos are gone. We must create a new spiritual ghetto. Ahad Ha'am declared Jews a global spiritual nation, a supernation. He demanded that every Jew, wherever they lived, consider themselves a keeper of a special higher morality and view their spiritual center as Palestine. Germany to Hitler, Italy to Mussolini, Palestine to us, demanded Ze'ev Jabotinsky's Zionist stormtroopers. It was no coincidence he was called the Jewish Hitler. He asserted that to achieve the Zionists' goals, the Jewish people had to be issued in a corrected edition. It was the year 1940. The fascists are now preparing for the final solution to the Jewish question. Jews across occupied Europe have been rounded up and driven into ghettos. Today, Zionists frequently speak about the millions of Jewish victims of Hitler's genocide. However, they prefer not to remember that they themselves actively collaborated with Gestapo members. Moreover, an auxiliary Jewish police force was also formed from among the Zionists themselves. "20 years after the war, the West German magazine Der Spiegel wrote, "Since both Zionists and National Socialists had elevated the concepts of race and nation to the status of a cult, it was inevitable that a common ground or bridge would emerge between them. And this bridge arose on monstrous piles of millions of Jews tortured and shot by fascists." These are scenes from post-war newsreels. Jews who survived the Nazi genocide sailed to Palestine from war-torn Europe. Zionists assured these people that after the immense hardships they had endured, only in the Promised Land could they truly find peace. The Jews were convinced that in Palestine, a peaceful and happy life awaited them, one that would allow them to finally forget the horrors of war. It was May of 1948. British troops were in the process of leaving Palestine. In accordance with a resolution passed by the United Nations organization, the British mandate over the territory of Palestine was officially coming to an end. It was decided that two separate states would be established there, a Jewish state and an Arab state. However, an Arab state was never actually established. There was not peace, but terror, that the Zionists brought with them to Palestine. Their armed detachments carried out hundreds of attacks on Palestinian towns and villages. The leader of one of these terrorist gangs, Menahem Begin,
"In this land, there is no place for both of these peoples. The only solution is a Palestine without Arabs. Not a single village, not a single tribe should remain here."
At dawn on April 10th, 1948, terrorists forcibly removed the entire population of the Arab village of Deir Yassin. They even killed the young ones. Fleeing death, hundreds of thousands of Arabs were forced to abandon their homes. Thus, the Zionists put into practice the slogan, "A land without a people, for a people without a land." The Palestinian Arab people became its victim. The first Prime Minister of Israel, one of the pioneers of Zionism, Ben-Gurion.
"The borders of Israel will be determined only in the course of war."
Thus, Israeli expansionism was born. The destiny of other peoples fundamentally does not interest the leaders of Zionism. Israel is above all else. So my understanding of Israeli policy, which you can find discussed in numerous articles, is first and foremost that Israel should not be a state just like all the others. It is a great misfortune that the path of Israel began with war. I personally asked Ben-Gurion to postpone the declaration of the state for a month to avoid war. Ben-Gurion did not do that. I told him that Ben-Gurion should be well aware that in the Talmud, that great Jewish religious commentary, it is explicitly stated that it is characteristic of every sinner that after committing one transgression, he inevitably takes on another. The very same principle applies to war. One war follows another, and soon it will be nothing but continuous warfare. Decades of wars fought to seize Arab lands, followed by a separate deal brokered at Camp David. U.S. President Carter, Israeli Prime Minister Begin, and Egyptian President Sadat signed the document hypocritically titled Frameworks for Peace in the Middle East. His true goal is to impose imperialist domination on the peoples of the Middle East, to perpetuate the Israeli occupation of Palestinian lands on the west bank of the Jordan River and in the Gaza Strip, as well as the Syrian Golan Heights.
What other occupied territories could you possibly mean? If you are referring to Judea, Samaria, and the Gaza Strip, then these are in fact liberated territories. They are an inherent and integral part of the land of Israel.
From whom exactly are the Zionists attempting to liberate Palestine? From the Palestinian people themselves, and those very territories which Menachem Begin once controversially labeled as liberated. The Zionists have since imposed a truly brutal and oppressive occupation regime. Consequently, not a single Palestinian individual can now feel safe or secure within their ancestral homeland. Thousands of Arabs have been driven out of their homes. Thousands of homes have been completely destroyed. Arab holy sites are being desecrated. Muslim mosques and Christian churches are burning. Zionists are trying to uproot Palestinian culture from the land they have proclaimed liberated.
I spent Christmas night in Bethlehem, occupied by the Israeli army. There were no Palestinians, none at all. On the streets of Bethlehem that night, there were soldiers, 15,000 troops for the Bethlehem area. The army was there, and tourists. But the Arab city was completely silent, motionless, and utterly without a sound. They were celebrating Christmas in their own homes. They did not wish to celebrate in the church, where the occupying and civil authorities were present. If any family member, even a teenager, throws a stone at a car or insults an Israeli soldier, Their entire family is held responsible for it. This is called family punishment, and it means the destruction of their home. I have seen a house just like that. It took my father 17 whole years to build that two-story home. This is a very large and numerous family. And a house like that, they're destroying. Several hundred soldiers are arriving, and people must evacuate their homes before it's blown up with dynamite, before absolutely everything is completely destroyed.
There we are. So hopefully that gives you some idea. And that was a documentary made in the 1980s, by the way, just to give you a heads up of how long this has been going on and how long those people have been fighting against it. And if you want to have a look at that documentary, I'm just about to pop the link in the comments for you to do so. Any thoughts on that, Lembit?
Well, it's one angle. The Zionists would say that's an unfair and biased assessment, and we can have a whole debate about that. Just two observations. One is Zionism is not the same as Judaism. You can be a Jew or not a Jew, and you can be a Zionist and not a Zionist. They're actually separate in a sense. And the second thing is, none of this gets resolved unless the underlying stress is resolved. And I thought we were close to it at one point, a two-state solution, but it's quite obvious that Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't want a two-state solution. He just doesn't want it. And so that's why we're in the mess we're in.
I've got a slightly different take to you on that. I don't think they ever wanted peace or a two-state solution ever. Certain entities never wanted that. Just a couple of things before we go. First of all, this appeared in Poland at the World Games. This is, of course, the Azov Battalion flag of the Ukraine, which is quite clearly neo-Nazi in nature. It doesn't seem that we have a problem if that is rolled out, yet you can't fly a flag of the UK in England. Isn't that strange? And something else that we will show you. Cycling is becoming very, very dangerous, Lembit.
Thomas qui est parti à la faute. Hop, 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 le suraccident. Attention! Oh non! L'image terrible, elle est passée par-dessus le parapet.
C'est pas possible, c'est pas possible.
Oh non!
Oh là là.
Base planting concrete, Tour de France. In any tours they do, whether it be the Tour de France or milk race or whatever. I was quite surprised to find out then, that cycling is the fifth most dangerous sport in the world.
I'm surprised as well, but not overly. During the COVID lockdown, cyclists always tell you that other road users are the problem. But during the COVID lockdown, other road traffic went down by about 1/5, about 20%. Cycling went up by about 40%, and cycling deaths went up by about 40%. It's directly proportional to how much cycling there is. Also, there's very clear evidence that the more you cycle as a man, the more likely you are to get prostate cancer. It's like if you cycle 8 hours a week instead of 1.5 hours a week, and you're over 50 and male, there's something like 500% more likely to have prostate cancer. We contacted the person who did the work, a guy called Dr. Hamer, and he said, I'm not going to try to explain why there's an association. He said, but there's a statistically significant one.
Yeah, it's a clear association. Thank you very much for that. Lembit, where can people find you?
At Lembit Opic at 0900 tomorrow morning. Warren and I will be on Lembit Opic Live at Unprecedented TV. Please do like and subscribe. We're heavily into funding rounds now. If you'd like to invest, get in touch as well. That would be very interesting and be very welcome. Any of you who are willing to come on, get involved, because we are really fighting for free speech. And thanks to Warren Thornton, we get a lot of great documentation, a fantastic programming, I mean. So thanks very much.
Thank you very much for that. And of course, we are going to play you out with the video again, because we think it is very much, if you are watching the show or the very first time, this is aimed at you. Have a look at this.
Have you ever noticed that the smarter you become, the lonelier you feel? It's a peculiar thing, isn't it? You'd think that intelligence would connect you to people, that seeing more, understanding more, would bring you closer to others. But it doesn't. Instead, it separates you. You walk into a room and everyone is laughing at something you don't find funny, talking about things that seem trivial, surface level, safe, and you smile, you nod, you play along, but inside you're somewhere else entirely. You're thinking about the conversation beneath the conversation, the patterns no one mentions, the questions no one's asking, and suddenly you realize you're alone. Not physically, but in every way that matters. This is the hidden cost of intelligence. The price nobody tells you about, the isolation that comes, not from being different, but from seeing differently. Let me tell you something about intelligent people, something that might explain why you feel the way you do. Intelligence isn't just about knowing more, it's about perceiving more, connecting dots that others don't see, following thoughts to their logical conclusions, even when those conclusions are uncomfortable. And here's the problem. Most people don't want to go there. They don't want to question the game. They want to play it. They don't want to examine the mask. They want to wear it. They don't want to wonder if the emperor has clothes. They want to complement the fabric. But you can't help it. You see the threads hanging loose. You notice the inconsistencies, the contradictions, the unspoken agreements everyone pretends are absolute truths. And when you point them out, even gently, even playfully, people get uncomfortable. Not because you're wrong, but because you're right. And being right about things people don't want to examine makes you dangerous. So they distance themselves. Not consciously, perhaps, not maliciously, but they do. They stop inviting you to things. They keep conversations shallow around you. They call you intense or overthinking or too serious. And you learn to keep your thoughts to yourself. You learn to dumb it down, to speak in half-truths, to laugh at jokes you don't find funny, to nod along with opinions you don't share. You learn to hide, because full honesty, you've discovered, is social suicide. Authentic expression is loneliness in motion.
There we are. Thank you very much for watching.